For some effects, a time value can be set for certain parameters to change the sound. For example, the rate parameter for tremolo, or the delay time for delay. For modulation effects, this time value is given in hertz or seconds with a numerical value. For delay, the delay time is set in milliseconds. However, it is more musical to use a setting of note values in relation to a certain tempo. The tempo can either be entered in beats per minute using the slider, or you can simply tap in the song tempo in quarter notes using the tap button on the profiler or the remote. Let's take a look at a few different examples. The tempo function is activated directly by pressing the tap button once. Now, all tempo-based effects can be set in note values, and they will adjust themselves according to the tempo you have set. The second time you press the tap button, the tempo you have tapped will be used. And the longer you keep tapping in quarter notes using the tap button, the more accurate it becomes. It's also important that you don't hold the tap button down for too long. You must only tap it briefly. The ideal way to input the tempo is via a connected foot switch or by using the tap button on the remote. The same applies here. Always use brief staccato taps in quarter notes and do not hold the pedal down, otherwise you will end up activating the beat scanner function. If you hold down the tap button on the profiler, the beat scanner will be activated, and you can enter the tempo by playing on the guitar. Of course, the best way to do this is to activate the beat scanner with a foot switch. This can be either the tap button on the remote or an external foot switch that has the tempo function assigned to it. The beat scanner will be active for as long as you hold the button down. The profiler will analyze what you play and recognize the tempo. This works in a range between 80 and 160 beats per minute. If the LED in the tap button isn't blinking, the tempo function isn't active. In this case, the rate of modulation effects such as tremolo, phaser or flanger will be displayed in hertz units. The higher the value, the faster the modulation will be. For more musical results, you can set the rate using note values. In this case, the rate follows the set tempo. To do this, the tempo function in the profiler must be activated. In other words, press the tap button once. The tempo function can be found in the rig menu. You press the rig button and go to the page labelled Tempo. Here you can see that there is a check mark in Tempo Enable, and the current rig tempo is shown in the display. You can change the rig tempo with the slider. The tempo is displayed in BPM, or beats per minute, and the tap button on the profiler and the LED next to the tap button on the remote will blink accordingly. If you want to disable the tempo function, just press soft button 1. If I've set a tremolo effect to 1/16th, the modulation rate will be in 16th notes, synced to the current rig tempo. In addition to simple note values like eighth notes or quarter notes, you can also set the rate to note values like triplets or dotted notes when using the tempo function. As usual, the slowest rate is set when the knob is turned all the way to the left, where the tremolo rate cycles with every half note. As I turn the knob further to the right, the rate will speed up. The intermediate steps to the next fixed note value are marked with dashes. Between the half note and the quarter note, 12 intermediate steps are possible. The selected value is always shown in brackets. If I've now activated a phaser, in the same rig but in a different effect module, that effect will also sync to the current rig tempo. Changing the rig tempo will cause the effect modulation speed to change accordingly. For delay effects, the delay time can also be set in two ways. This is done directly on the Effects Edit page. If you have activated a delay in the signal chain, hold down the corresponding button so that the Delay Edit page appears in the display. Then go to page 1. If the toTempo function is not activated, the delay time is displayed in milliseconds and can be adjusted accordingly with the delay time knob. If you press soft button 2, the tempo will be displayed in note values, and these will sync to the currently selected rig tempo. You can only choose regular note values without intermediate steps. The note values are shown in groups of sixteenths. 4 sixteenths corresponds to a quarter note. The odd-numbered groups like 5 sixteenths or 7 sixteenths can sound particularly interesting. When the rig tempo is changed, the delay adjusts accordingly. This also applies to all other effects in the rig whose speed is set to note values. If you want to work in a rig with two different delay times, for example a quarter note delay for the verse part and a 3/16 delay for the chorus, you can switch between them by morphing. First you set the value for the verse, 4 sixteenths. Then press the rig button of the corresponding slot and set the value for the refrain, 3 sixteenths. The M behind the value indicates that this parameter is controlled by morphing. If you want to switch the whole thing quickly with the button, it's important that the morph process happens immediately. To achieve this, press the rig button and navigate to the Morph page. Then set rise time and fall time to 0 seconds each. If you control the profiler with a MIDI controller, the functions of the tap and beat scanner can also be triggered via MIDI control change 30. Here you have to make sure that the correct values are sent for pressing and releasing so that the beat scanner does not remain switched on unintentionally. You'll need to look at the manual for this. The profiler synchronizes itself automatically as soon as a clock signal is received at its MIDI input. Then the tap tempo and any associated tempo-based effects will sync to the MIDI clock sent from an external device. Conversely, the profiler can also send MIDI clock signals to other devices, and then these will sync to the tempo entered in the rig. To activate the Send MIDI Clock function, press the System button and navigate to the MIDI Settings page. Then press Soft button 4 to activate the Send MIDI Clock function. If you are in performance mode, you can also set the tempo for a complete performance at once. The rigs in all 5 slots will then follow this tempo. To activate performance tempo, press the rig button and go to the tempo page. With soft button 2, you can activate the performance tempo function and change the tempo with the soft knob. The tempo values of the individual rigs will now be ignored. You only have to do this in one slot in the performance. The performance tempo now applies to all slots in this performance that contain a rig with the tempo enable function enabled. If you want the tempo to be the same for all rigs in the profiler, press soft button 4, lock tempo, and the tempo setting will be the same for all rigs. The tempo is changed as soon as a new value is entered via the tap button on the profiler or remote, or via the control options. This lock function can be set independently in performance and browser modes. Therefore, a locked tempo is not transferred from browser mode to performance mode or vice versa.